What would John say if he had to introduce himself? He'd probably say, "Hi, I'm John Mackey."
So I think one of the most special things about John is how humble he is.
He's a very loving person, he's a very generous person, and he is a very loyal person.
You may be off-put by John at times because he'll tell you the truth, and a lot of us don't want to hear the truth. What we want to be is flattered or whatever, and that's not always what John's not going to do. That John is going to tell you what's on his mind and what he's thinking, and I think that's a wonderful trait to have. But because I know that John comes from a compassionate space and a heart space, it's easier for me to accept because I know him so well.
Whether or not it's something like socially normal to say, he'll still say it because he's honest.
John has this amazing commitment to self-development. Because of that, he's a very well-developed person. You know, his intellect, his spirituality, his friendships, you know, his love relationships, and his work life. And he doesn't compartmentalize any of that. He brings everything he has to every aspect of his life.
John is a bundle of contradictions.
He's so down to earth. You know, he's that guy who's always want to wear shorts and hang out and relax and have his friends around and have a good time. You know, if you didn't know who he was, you'd have no idea who he was.
So that's John Mackey.
I think John innately always had the ability that he has now. When I first met him, even though he seemed like he was somewhat of a, can't say a scatterbrain because he was never a scatterbrain, but he was like a mad genius in a way. He was very hard to categorize. I'd never met anybody quite like John.
He was really, really interested in basketball and played basketball and loved basketball, and that was his life.
I met John in 1967. John was a basketball player for Spring Branch Junior High, and I was a basketball player for Memorial Junior High. Now looking back on it, I can certainly see why he's been so successful in business. He was very thoughtful and very focused. Always a good strategist. He always played team sports, and so growing up, the focus was on the team. And he internalized the best kind of values, I think, in that regard.
I think that being involved in a team sport like that and knowing how important it is to play as a team has really helped him in a lot of things in life, but especially in business.
John mostly likes a comfortable chair and a big stack of books. That's the most important thing to him.
John is one of the most well-read people I know.
I think the thing about John, if he doesn't know something about it, but he's interested in it, he's an avid reader. He'll sit down and he'll read continuously to try to find out more about what it is he wants to know.
I think he probably is more introvert than extrovert. And I think that probably might be behind his passion for hiking. The hiking is a way to recharge his batteries, and where he has the trail name of Strider.
I think it's really shaped his fitness and his health.
He was one of the first people I met that was a scuba diver, and we've been on a bunch of different trips, and he's avid about it. And there's nothing, I mean, John will dive 3 times a day if he can, and stay down the longest and go the farthest. And
Like he goes down and he just disappears, you know, and you're like, it's like, okay, I better make sure somebody's watching me because there's no way you can keep up with him, right? It's just like his mountain goat climbing thing.
I'm sure on those trails out there when he's walking along, he's thinking and and coming up with new ideas and new possibilities and stuff.
And maybe that's one of the reasons that his heart is always so open, because the time that he does spend outdoors, because he's always really conscious of the world at large.
He does the things that he likes, and he just gets deeper into them, whether it's, diving or reading or hiking. traveling, like he's always enjoyed doing those.
And then it seems like he's able to have a really creative mind when he's out on the trail and come up with really fascinating ideas that have moved Whole Foods in some really great directions.
When we went to the Grand Canyon on a trip with a bunch of friends one time, and John never wanted me to take his picture. He was really adverse to it. And the only time that I can ever remember in my life, we were standing under this waterfall there, and it was just such a magical moment. And we were all standing there, and John, jumps up out of the water and puts his hands in the air, and he said, Greg, take a picture of me. He was just full of life and full of joy.
Most people see John as one of the most important things he does is the Whole Foods thing, but there's a lucky group of us that see a very important thing that he does is once a year he has an event which he calls Sports Weekend.
Usually it's centered around playoffs of some type or another, and games and competitions, or just sitting around and talking.
Everybody's swimming in the creek, or playing frisbee, or cornhole, the most competitive sport in the world, or volleyball, and John just always wanted to make sure that everyone is comfortable and having a great time.
He's also the kind of guy that, I don't know how he does it, but he seems to be good at everything he does when it comes to sports. And I thought I was pretty good at ping pong until I met John. And he gives me a good run for my money and beats me most of the time.
Also, the other thing about these gatherings that he does, these sports weekends, is that there's so many different kinds of people. You have the animal rights people, you've got Wall Street people, you've got people who are doing microfinance nonprofit things around the world, you've got libertarians. He's just got a whole different there's so many different kinds of people that come, and it makes it a very interesting gathering when you get together with all of John's friends.
I mentioned loyalty. I think these are friends that he's been loyal to for many years, and that loyalty has been reciprocated. I think he brings that out in the friendships that he has.
And we hit it off right off the bat. Our common language was NBA basketball, and our friendship developed out of that.
I think John sees beauty in people that even they don't see. And that's where I bet a lot of that loyalty comes from. And I was a little bit skeptical of him when I first met him. And it was very clear to me early on that you're getting the real deal. Like you're getting honesty every single time you talk to him or ask for advice.
Someone who can be very present in their own life and also very present in yours, even when you don't see each other all that often.
I mean, he's so dialed in so many areas. I don't know where the guy has time to be connected to all of that stuff, but he is, he's got a lot of friends.
He likes to see people flourish, and that is not a common thing in everyone that I know. Like he's always going to take care of himself, but he's really always thinking about how can I help literally the rest of the world, and that's pretty rare.
And I've never felt judged by him, so I love that.
It's a beautiful thing to watch how his friendships develop and grow and become richer and deeper.
John is an extremely generous person, and not only with his friends, like for Sports Weekend, but he's just done a lot of stuff that nobody knows about. And he doesn't say anything about for a lot of people that have been in his life that have come into need for one reason or another. And I know about a few instances, but I'm sure there's many more as well. And I think that's something people ought to know about John, because I don't think that many people do.
John was fortunate enough to have a fantastic wife in Deborah, And I think they've had a symbiotic relationship with each other. I think in particular, Deborah's had a huge impact on John, on his personality, on his spirituality, on his sense of generosity and of love and compassion.
And Deborah, it seems like, for sure, is the one that is the special one, and the one that he definitely loves, and is a partner that was supportive and loving and caring, and somebody that he could, know would be by his side for the rest of his life.
You know, she was like the love light that shot into his life and allowed him to be a much better man.
So this is one of my favorite pictures of John and Deborah. I took it years ago, and I caught John and Deborah sleeping one day, and somehow their faces seemed to merge into each other, where John is Deborah and Deborah is John. But the look of love on their face and relaxation is just great, and it's just always one of my favorites. I think Deborah's lucky to have found John, and I think John is lucky to have found Deborah.
It was obviously exactly the right thing for John to do.
Well, I think John had a vision of what could be possible.
His resume is a very strange resume because it pretty much goes from ice cream scooper to CEO of Whole Foods.
John, right from the very beginning, was always very passionate about the food he ate and what he ate.
He's got a very, very brilliant mind, and he could take what he learned from the books and take what he felt in his heart, being the young hippie that he was, and incorporate that into the business that he, in his idealistic mind, could see.
You know, for John, Whole Foods is really a part of who he is. You know, he founded it. It's almost impossible to distinguish, his personal life from his professional life.
But he spent so much time playing team sports and took such joy in playing team sports that I think he really learned a lot about other people. And a lot of basketball is about not only scoring points yourself, but the strategy is trying to put yourself in a position so that all your teammates play better.
We all have different skill sets, and so John recognizes the areas where there's folks who have a skill set stronger than him in particular areas, and he surrounds himself with those people. He's always surrounded himself with those people, and I think that's what makes our company so strong.
I think that's one of the things I most admire about John is he's the leader of the company, the visionary, but he's also willing to work with strong personalities for the most part, and work together with them until at such time as either it doesn't work anymore or it's time to move in another direction.
I don't think I've ever seen anyone so sure of their perspective remain so open to listening to everybody else's viewpoint.
If we had a problem, I could see one way to solve it, and that's the way I would do it. But John would come along and he could think of 6 different ways to solve it, and 6 different solutions, and each, probably all 5 of them or all 6 of them better than the one that I had come up with. That's just the way he thinks. He sees a problem, he thinks about it, and he gets lots of feedback. So I think that's one of the things about John that I really admire, is his ability to listen to criticism. And it must be hard for him, because I know the 20 years that I was there, man, he got so much criticism from me and from everybody else about so many different things, and it was only because he was so passionate about it, what he was doing. But other people have come in that have far more ability and far more talent in order to take the company from where it was to where it is. And John taught me that it's okay to recognize that there are other people out there that could do things, and just let them have the opportunity to do it.
The company culture that Whole Foods has, I think, is a big reflection on his personality. I think that's how he's able to be so inclusive with friends and make such deep connections with people outside of Whole Foods and inside of Whole Foods.
Just the vision that he had was also to help individuals flourish and find their own way. And so that culture of empowerment that we have from Whole Foods, that's John. He wants you to grow, he wants to push you, he wants you to push yourself, he wants to figure things out. So I think one of the main reasons Whole Foods is successful is sometimes he just gets out of the way.
It's an atmosphere that fosters friendships at Whole Foods. And
people who work at Whole Foods, a lot of them really do feel like they're doing something good, that they're not just selling widgets, that it's something that's actually having an impact.
I always talk about the land of misfit toys, that many of us at Whole Foods, we never really belonged anywhere. Whether it was in school, we weren't in these cliques, or in college, we didn't necessarily fit in, or early jobs where you're coming up with ideas and people are like, we're not paying you for that, we don't want to hear your thoughts on that, just get back to work. And to all of a sudden arrive in a culture that encourages you to speak your mind and gives you the opportunity to move up and do something with your thoughts, that's the company that Whole Foods is, and that's the company that John's created. And I think that's the most powerful competitive advantage that we have, is this empowered culture where people are able to fully realize their skills and develop themselves as individuals on a higher path and with a mission. And it's so cool because when people connect with that and they feel part of that, they're no longer in the land of misfit toys. You know, they feel like, I'm home finally. And you know, I have this conversation with team members all the time, and people are like, yes, that's my experience. I feel like I've landed somewhere.
I mean, literally when we first sat around and started thinking about Whole Foods Market and how many stores could we have, John was the one that was just thinking that, well, we could have 6 stores. And I thought, 6 stores, wow, that's a lot. And then when we got to 6 stores, it was like, wow, we may have a store in Kansas City someday, you know, which seemed, yeah, right.
And the reason he does it so well is because it's so genuine, and the proof is in the pudding.
He's like a big systems person. He sees how the world functions socially and in all kinds of different realms, economically, politically, etc. And he can come up with solutions that are kind of out of the box. And he's done that with the business as well. He's created a business that's not the ordinary. People love to work at Whole Foods, and there's good reason, because he's really created a place where people are empowered and there's love in the environment, which has not been a usual thing that people talked about in business.
That drive really is, I think it's love for humanity.
Perfect. I have learned more from Whole Foods and the way it operates and its leadership and my fellow directors than I have from all of the other companies on whose boards I have served.
For me, it was just the right lifestyle, and I feel very blessed to have been a part of it.
The level of consciousness that I think Whole Foods has brought to our society that wasn't really, you know, in anyone's minds yet.
There's so much magic when John talks about the moment that he decided that he was going to make his own choice and do the thing his dad wasn't condoning.
You know, his father was his mentor for years and years and years, and then there came a point when it was time for that relationship to change and for them to be more on an equal level.
You know, you have these mentors and role models, and we all need them. And we have these, you know, there's these attributes that these people have that we're aspiring to, and we have some of it inside of us, but we need to cultivate that to the level that these people have. And then at some point we get to our lesson and we decide we're ready for a different one, and we move on. And I think, I think what's great about that moment for him when he decided to disagree with his father and do something different for Whole Foods Market, that ended up being the best decision for Whole Foods Market, or one that absolutely allowed our success this many years later. What's beautiful about that is how much respect and love there was in that moment of like, thank you for all these lessons, like understanding that you've gotten everything that you can, that you've absolutely gone through and listened to everything that you can learn from this person, and now it's time to go make your own way. And I think that that's the part of that relationship that I think is a beautiful moment.
I've never ever sung before so many people, and I'm afraid you're in for a terrible letdown after what Allison did.
I don't think we ever had a dinner anywhere with his dad where his dad didn't at some point in the middle of the dinner start singing. And his dad was was just terrific at it and was not the least bit shy.
That song, he used to sing it at every occasion, and it's a fun, you know, young at heart, you know, it's nice. And
Let me start and you catch up with me. I'll never get in gear otherwise.
whenever you hear that song, his dad, it's immediately, oh, that's Bill Mackey, even if it's not him singing.
Fairy tales can come true. It can happen to you if you're young at heart. For it's hard, you will find, to be narrow of mind if you're young at heart. You can go to extremes with impossible schemes. You can laugh when your dreams fall apart at the seams. And life grows more exciting with each passing day. And love is either in your heart or on its way.
You feel him, you hear him. So, yeah, that was his trademark, was to be young at heart and to remind people of that by singing it at all the events.
It's much better by far to be young at heart. And if you should survive to 100.
John really grew, and I know his dad really loved him and really respected him and was really proud of what he had done. And like I said, if he could be here today, he would really be proud of what Whole Foods has done and what John's part in doing that.
If you are among the very young at heart.
From one who ought to know.
And I don't know, maybe some people disagree, but I think John probably would have been just as successful as he is today had he, picked another industry to transform. It just so happened food caught his eye.
And yet, the company would not be where it is today had we not had someone like John. And there's not many someones like John out there. So
It's like he sees things like The Matrix, the movie The Matrix with like all the numbers coming down the screen. John actually has the key to the Matrix. It's like he can see things that need to change to benefit people, and then he actually also has the ability to execute that change.
I always remember the impression that I had of him. He was just a frizzy-haired, long-haired kid that was dressed in running shorts, and he drove what they called the Safer Way postal van, which was his delivery vehicle.
I really respected him. I thought he was doing great things in the world. He was so idealistic and really wanted to serve, and he's actually done a lot of the things that he, wanted to do as a younger guy.
It's almost as if he stayed completely true to his own ideals all this time. I'm sure he's learned a lot of lessons along the way, but we're still the activists bucking the system here. It's just we're doing it as a publicly traded company and having amazing results.
This would have been his wildest dream, and if he could have imagined some place like Whole Foods and what Whole Foods has been able to accomplish, and spread out as much as has been, and how many people and shareholders that we touch in so many different ways. He didn't think that back when we first got together, but I think that each success and each step taught him to think bigger and to think about what else is possible and to continue to push in that direction. And I'm sure he's doing the same thing today, is thinking, well, what else is possible and how much bigger can we get? And trying to always keep the original goals and ideals of the company in mind when he's doing it.
And you know, he is on this eternal quest to make the world a better place, and that drives him. I mean, that feeds his soul.
John is really the same person he was in 1967.
His ability to follow his heart and really take risks has encouraged me to do that in my life.
That's been his journey all through his life, is to find himself and find out what he can and what he can do and is capable of doing.
How to do good with business, and that business is a very powerful tool for changing the world.
I would not be surprised if the visionary side of him becomes more and more important.
What John taught me is that everything isn't black and white. There are other ways to think about things, but there was a lot of things that I learned from him that I carry with me to this day. And thinking back about it, I feel like totally blessed to have been able to work with John and so many other people that I work closely with at Whole Foods, who I think all had an impact on my life. He is a true visionary, and one of the few that I can think of that I've ever been around.
I just don't see John as the type of guy that's ever just going to slow down and retire and throw his feet up on the couch and call it a day. And I just don't see him slowing down.